What up? In this video, I'm going to be tackling a couple different lies that you've been told that were installed in your brain when you grew up in society. So let's dive in, let's have some fun. For me, I grew up cradle Catholic, and I was a devout Catholic. I'm like, I'm going to be the best Catholic ever. I'm going to win all the points in this game. And if you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. And eventually I figured that out. I started to get curious and question. I remember this kid on my high school volleyball team was an atheist, and he was smart, he was athletic, so there was some aspect of valuing and being curious about his opinion, not just discounting it. And so he would share these atheistic belief thoughts about challenging Catholicism and like, how do we know there's a God? Would God do this? Would God do that? And I was like, huh, it's interesting points. It sounds kind of logical. And that acted as some cracks in the dam, if you will, of the Catholic upbringing. And so people, seems like, can have generally two different false starts. You can either be born into a dogmatic religion and then you jump into atheism after, or you start in a dogmatic religion and you kind of like soften up and just become a hippie. Or you're born as like a scientific atheistic person with no specific religion, and then you end up moving into some religion. You could be kind of that hippie vibe, or you could actually go into a nice middle ground spirituality. But essentially, you're either dogmatic religious on one end, you're dogmatic atheistic on the other end, and you can swap, or you can go to the middle. And the middle is where the sweet spot is. The middle is this ancient mother religion that we find evidence of in all cultures with the work of Richard Casaro. I appreciate his work. He was pointing out the God self icon symbol we find for a religion, found virtually in every culture. We see the pyramids all over the world, and we see a solar disk icon. So contextually, and I think there's this great quote of content: if content is king, then context is God. So for the context of, and why is context important? It's because if you don't know where you are, where you're coming from, it's disorienting, right? It takes away from your ability to figure out where you're going to go. It's like a map is useless if you don't know where you are on the map. You might know where you want to go on the map, but if you don't know where you are, you can't actually orientate, calibrate, and effectively move towards it and know that you're moving closer versus further, right? You could literally have it inverted and you're moving away. So that's the importance of context. And so we're born into a world where there's a bunch of experts too, authority figures, seemingly experts and seemingly authority figures, whether they're priests or PhD scientists or spiritual leaders or anything like that. We've got a ton of people who are speaking various levels of mistruth. Some are inverted, outright false, going the opposite direction of where you want to go. Some are partial truths where it has you kind of going in the right direction, but it can have you slipping up because you don't have a strong, coherent system that you're using to make effective decisions. So it's basically chaos. Like if we don't have a coherent model of reality, we can't map out what's going on and how to drive towards a better state, how to grow. And the context that I've settled on currently is that, generally speaking, there's this advanced civilization that we see evidence of before the flood, which is counter to what mainstream science says. Mainstream history says that we've got things like the pyramids that were built around 5,000 years ago, and that civilization is just several thousand years old. So we had the flood, and civilization had developed after that. And that before the flood, there was no advanced civilization. It was kind of just hunters and gatherers. This is the general narrative brushstroke, them painting. It seems like that's pretty wrong. It's very wrong. It wasn't this linear stair-step growth that we've experienced over time, and we're at the peak. It's actually been a cyclical up and down, and that we were more advanced in the past. Probably a different type of advanced. We probably didn't have the type of left brain material mastery, like manipulating matter that we have the type of today, but we did have advanced knowledge, wisdom, technology, tools back in the day, as is evidenced by the pyramids and other incredible sites that start to point to this understanding, this very advanced understanding. And that's the thing, is like, if you had something like a sniper or a computer, like I've got this iPad right here. Imagine taking this back to a caveman, and you just put it on the ground, and they find it, and they come upon it, and they're just like, what the heck is this? Like, it's so flat, and it's shiny, like I can see my reflection. What is this? And they might give some interpretations to it, to be like, oh yeah, this was a weapon that our ancient ancestors would chuck like a boomerang and hit little bunnies and break their necks and eat them. That's how they use this. Would you believe me? Because that's what we do kind of with some of the ancient stuff, whether it's ancient mythologies, ancient ruins like pyramids. It's a level of consciousness that we had forgotten. We got disconnected from it. And so as a result, when we look at it, we actually don't see the level of intelligence that is present. When there's this law about the ladder of consciousness, where when you're higher up on the ladder, you can actually see down and kind of like see into that other person's state, their consciousness, how they're processing information, because you've been there. You still have that level. The concept here I've learned and borrowed from integral theory. It's that when you develop, when you go up this ladder of development, you don't lose the lower level rungs, right? So if you're going to level 10 on the rungs, you still have rung 9, rung 8, rung 7. All those rungs are included. But someone at rung 5, they don't have 10. They haven't gotten there yet. So that's the general concept. And that when we are at one level, we can't see above and beyond the higher levels. So that is related to what's going on when we look into the past. And we're like, these people seemed dumb. They thought that there was this Zeus person that got mad that chucked lightning bolts down. Silly, silly ancient people. Don't they know that it's electrostatics? But my point is that when you actually gave them the benefit of the doubt and you just remain open to saying, maybe the ancients were more advanced than we give them credit for, and you start to take a holistic approach to look at ether physics, consciousness, the esoteric religions, the ancient ruins, it starts to create a coherent picture. And you can start to see that they were advanced. They did have a great knowledge. We became disconnected from spirit. Seems like we had a type of natural, instinctual clairvoyance where we would connect to the spiritual realm, and that we lost that. And it seems like that probably is related to the trauma that we experienced in our nervous system collectively when this massive flood happened around 12,000 years ago. And if you look at trauma in the nervous system and how it affects it, it totally messes it up. It fragments it. It can shut down certain parts. It can like delete stuff from our memory because it just tucks that memory away inside because it's too emotionally charged. So it can, we think we have a like healthy, live, raw connection into reality. That's totally not true. We have a very compromised, it's distorted because of stuff like trauma and because of false models of reality. So, and some of this narrative I'm borrowing from Rudolf Steiner, who started the Theosophical and Anthroposophical Society. I like him because he bridges the gap between spirituality and science. He was very grounded in the practicality of results, right? He was developing the biodynamic farming agricultural system, which has to produce good food. Like, if it's not, it's pretty evident. And the Waldorf education system, which has to produce results, right? It has to help educate children and do so effectively. And it's not like they just produce results for the farming and the education. They produce some of the best, if not the best, results in the world for their respective categories. So he was in so many different fields, and he bridged the spirituality and the science, and it gave this holistic model, this holistic appreciation of what was going on. And so that's why Steiner, I'll bring him up a lot. He's, for me, a great resource. So Steiner talked about how there's this instinctual type of clairvoyance that we had, and that we had lost it, and now it's time to consciously develop it, and that it will give rise to a new type of clairvoyance. So it might seem like, oh, poor us, we got disconnected. We used to be connected to the heavenly realm, and now we're disconnected, and we feel like maybe a child with the baby with the umbilical cord cut off, and we're just drifting out here in the Maya, in the illusion of the 3D realm. But Steiner paints it as a gym workout. You know, we're in here, we're squatting, we're growing a new organ, which is our third eye, our conscious clairvoyance, and everything's a setup. It's a setup for us to develop. They're teeing us up to knock it out of the park. And so where do I want to go from here? Laying down the context. Some other important context is that it seems that the trap of the 21st century, Satan's trap, is transhumanism and AI. And what I mean by that is that we've got a couple, in the 21st century, we've got exponential technologies that are developing. And what that means is that they're technologies that have some aspect of them that are improving at a rate that isn't linear. It doesn't go, processing speed of 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. It goes 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. It's geometric, it's exponential, so it runs away really quick. And humans in general have a tough time processing this and projecting, like, so that making that, orienting ourselves in regards to how those rates of development affect us over time, and how we should adjust our behavior or our goals or any of that stuff. It's a snowball. It's crazy. It's like seeing a little snowball, and then like 10 minutes later it's a tsunami, and you're like, wait, that was just a snowball. Like, I didn't think it was causing any reason to be alarmed for being at risk. So we have exponential technologies that are doubling every 18 months or so, and that's going to lead to this imagine there's several roads or rivers, and they lead all into one aspect. That's all of these technologies. We've got robotics, nanotechnology, AI, genetic manipulation, and several more. And so the whole point is they're going to try to push, and they already are, to have you integrate directly with technology. And I remember seeing a video about, who was it? Prince. He was given some speech for winning an award. He's talking about, it's okay to be on the internet, but don't let the internet be on you. It's okay for you to be on your phone, but don't let your phone be on you. It's this idea of, like, he was referencing the Matrix. It's like, you guys have all seen that, right? So it's a two-way street. That's what I want to point out here. So they're going to market it as like, you're going to have an upgraded brain. You're going to be smarter, more creative. You're going to be able to regulate your nervous system better, all the above. It's going to be waxing poetic and tons of clickbait about all the benefits of something like Neuralink. And yet it's a trap because it's a two-way street. Not only do you gain access to all the powers of Neuralink, but Neuralink gains access to all of your data and understanding what's going on. And if we look historically, it's not good when capitalism is just given its own reins and lets itself go, because with a year-long feedback loop cycle and requiring a fiscal responsibility of turning a profit and not having the priority be the actual user, the student, the client, whoever's actually the customer and their well-being, not having that be the priority, that is a bad feedback loop, and it's going to turn into essentially extracting as much profit, data, energy, this is eyeballs, this is physiological energy, it's literally an energetic vampire on multiple dimensions, because data is energy, your money's energy, your actual physical energy. So what am I saying there? Actual physical energy. My whole point is, like, if they can get you to my whole point is it's a battle of energy. People are trying to sell you on investing your energy into something, and you invest your energy in multiple ways, with your words, with your thoughts, with your money, with your time of who you're spending it with. So the transhumanistic trap it's upon us, and it's gonna be sad, because just the state of the world seems like a ton of people are gonna get stuck in that trap. So part of my goal is to make holistic education available to the world, and part of holistic education is to give a fair warning, that yellow or red flag, to say, hey, look, this is right here, you got to watch out. They're going to try to connect your brain to a chip, and you're going to turn into their bitch, basically. So we've been lied to about physics. The ether is real. It's a transcendental medium or source that gives rise to the medium, which is the dielectric field that Nikola Tesla and J.J. Steinmetz, who were just huge geniuses in electric theory and building our modern world, they were proponents of the ether and these two fundamental aspects of light, of electromagnetism, being magnetism and dielectricity. It's like lightning and magnetism. And when you start to actually drill down into that and just go back to the roots, before we had Einstein derail it, and you'd be like, wow, they had a very clear grasp of reality. And it is very simple. It's got some nuance, complexity to it. As Ken Wheeler, one of my ether physics mentors, says, it's simplex. And so they had to, I love what Eric Dollard says, is they had to try to put the Pandora's box, they had to try to close it back up. They had to try to put the genie back in the lamp in regards to ether physics, because the possibilities are unimaginable. You got stuff like the UFOs. That stuff is basically Nikola Tesla technology. And Ken Wheeler, my ether physics mentor, he brings up a really interesting point, which is that part of the reason why they'd want to maintain a narrative that we don't have any idea what's the UFO technology is, it's not ours, we don't have access to it, is because what is powering it? We could talk about two aspects, like how does it actually move the way it does, and what is powering the technology? What's the power source for the technology of how it moves in the way that it does? And without getting into it deeply, it's related to Nikola Tesla's work and how magnetism and dielectricity work to either expand space or collapse space. And yeah, it opens up rabbit holes for that, for energy, for transportation, for the healthcare industry. And we've got a control system, and it doesn't want to lose its control. And there's an aspect of it that we can look at our individual selves and relate it to the collective, and vice versa. We can look at the collective and see how it relates to us individually. It's the Hermetic law of correspondence, as above, so below, as within, so without. And we see that we've got our individual ego, and it likes to have a sense of safety and security and maintain a certain status quo, right? It wants to keep things static, essentially. And we have that on a collective level. We have an ego that likes to have a sense of control and keep things status. And what do I mean by a collective ego? I mean that there's all these structures and these groups of people that come together to form kind of like a meta-organism. Like you've got all of these individual neurons in your brain, and they come together and they create this meta object. It's synergy is what I'm touching on. It's this thing, it's a structure that is greater than the sum of its parts. And so like a brain has a special quality that's different from a neuron. That's my point. But this relationship of how neurons give rise to a brain is similar to how humans give rise to a cultural brain, if you will. So not sure what the main point I'm drilling in towards here right now. It's that we're in a trap. There's a resistance to waking up. There is a lot of magic and opportunities that arise when we correct our view and our understanding. Yeah, there's just so much. There's so much to talk about. So many different beliefs to go in and just tweak. Some of them are subtle too. So anyways, I will shut this video down now. I'm grateful if you got to the end here. Right now I'm cranking out reps. Just get used to speaking to the camera and dropping all expectations, because that's kept me from producing consistently. So getting in the reps, getting used to just expressing off the cuff, and getting better at speaking to a camera that's not one person. It could be 1,000 people. And I'm like, how do I frame this for 1,000 people? So much love. We'll talk more later. Peace.